right here.
Gotcha. Derek, I'm not sure you heard, but the Rams picked up Baker Mayfield off waivers, and I know that not your issue, but as a quarterback, is it doable to maybe? I mean, he's eligible to play.
Yeah, I'm not sure the systems that he's been in. The terminology and all that kind of stuff. There's some systems that you could possibly do that, and all those things. But that's more power to him. But I'm focused on their defense because their defense is pretty good.
Obviously, some of the names have changed over on that side of the ball. Aaron doesn't look like he's going to go. But what do you see on film from the Rams? Even though it might not be who we thought they were coming into this season.
They still, they're playing really good football. They're flying around. They have obviously some of the biggest names, on the defensive side of the ball that you could ever, see on a football field. And, they got guys playing at a high level. Last week, especially, they didn't get the win, but they're still doing a lot of really good things. And so it's going to be a really good challenge for us, a really good challenge for all three levels, for us as an offense. And, you see them flying around. You see, the disguise, certain things that they're able to do because of the group they've had play together and all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be a great challenge for us, though.
Since the Saints game, pretty much top 10 in most of the quarterback stats that matter. Is there anything in particular that's clicked for you since then, getting more comfortable with the system or something with the players?
I think we're just executing better. I think that the offense is we're running it smoother. I think that as a unit, we're better because it's more time on task. And so, those are the expectations for us always. And it's hard to do that right off the jump, especially learning something new. It's different than anything I've learned before. But once you get a feel for it, you play football and you start to put your spin on it, and you play football, and then those kind of things can happen. But the most important thing is that we win. Because when we win, all that other stuff takes care of itself.
Derek, obviously, Jalen Ramsey kind of is in that star position. They move him around a lot in the Rams defense, but with the chemistry you have with Davante and how this offense is working, how much pleasure do you have having a guy like that going up against a cornerback as good as he is?
Jalen's one of the best, not just one of the best corners, he's one of the best football players in the NFL. He literally lines up. I've seen him line up at linebacker. I've seen him line up at the Sam spot, the Mike spot. I've seen him line up, in safety spots, in the star spot, the outside corner, left and right. The versatility that he has, not just as a DB but as a football player is unbelievable. He blitzes, he covers, he plays man coverage, he plays zone coverage. He can do everything. And not just at the corner spot, I'm talking about everywhere on the field. And so, I've known Jalen for years now, and we have great respect, for his game and for him. And, he's someone, talked to him this past offseason, in off seasons before that. He's a guy I've always respected and, admired and watched from afar. So to compete against him will be a lot of fun.
When you go on a run like this, I think people are always looking back like, what was the turning point? I know it's not that simple, and it's a lot of little things, but some people point towards your words after the Colts game. But I've heard a lot of guys in the locker room say that, like a message Deron Harmon gave during the film session about just having more energy, being more excited at practice has gone a long way. I wonder, do you remember that? And he's maybe the only guy on this team that's been in the league longer than you. Have you learned stuff from him, taken things from him?
Yeah, I learn from all my teammates, whether they're older than me or younger than me. I'm trying to, if I admire something about someone, I try and add it to my game as an athlete, just trying to always improve and be better, That's something that Ole always taught me, never-ending self-improvement, And, so I've learned that as a rookie. And now in my 9th year, as you look at a guy like Deron, who's won championships and has played at the highest level, of course, you'd be silly not to learn things from him. And so I remember the moment, and I remember he's had a few moments like that where he's one of the leaders on this team. Guys voted that way. Guys believe in him. Guys listen to him, and they respect him because of what he does every day. And so he's absolutely someone I listen to and would learn from. Absolutely.
Yeah, pretty much every play, it seems like you put a snap, point out. I think it's the back that you're pointing out. Is it something that's helping out the offensive line, or is it something just for you personally, or what does that do kind of for the offense?
Yeah. There's different calls that are made based on that. And it's a good question. It's a big question, though. That I could go down a long rabbit hole, of stuff about. But really, it's just helped to get communication and for everyone to get on the same page and things like that.
There have been a few flickers this season.
Yeah.
What's your favorite thing with that call, and what's the biggest challenge for you with that call?
The biggest challenge is being patient because you want to you want the ball, especially once you see it open. I want the ball, then you start seeing them figure it out. It's a flea flicker, and then all the eyes come to me, and all that stuff. So, I think the one in Seattle I caught running forward because the guy was coming. But, I think the challenge, it puts on the defense is that we're literally giving the ball to Josh. And when he's leading the league in rushing, he's playing extremely well and he's running so physical that if you don't come downhill ready to hit him, he's shown that he'll run through people. So I think the challenge is, for them is when we stick the ball in his stomach, it's like a big play action, for us. And so if we can execute them at a high level in practice, then it doesn't feel like a trick kind of play for us or anything like that. It just feels like another play we're calling. But I think, anytime you can give the ball to that guy and it's believable and it's something they have to respect, we can have big plays like we've had so far.
So you have one eye on Josh, one eye on Davante on the field, or how's your clock going?
I got progressions on all of them. Sometimes I have a safety I'm looking at. Sometimes I have, a route that I'm looking at first, then that guy, then the next guy. And so as I do certain things, there's certain guys I'm looking at and things like that. So it just depends on which one.
Derek, Bobby Wagner's been doing this a long time. But if you turn on the tape right now, is he still doing it at a pretty high level?
Yes. Yeah, Bobby's been playing at a high level since my sophomore year at Utah State when we played him at home and he made every tackle in the football game. And so, I at the time didn't know his draft position or ranking or any of that kind of stuff. But all I knew is this guy finds the football, and now he's put together a Hall of Fame type career, and it's fun to see him. There's not many of us from the WAC conference, anymore, and so to see him still playing at a high level. Like he is, especially last week. I mean, my goodness, he literally did everything all over the field. And I'm not shocked, I'm not surprised, but it was really fun to watch. It'll be fun to compete against him. It always is because he's one of the best linebackers to ever play our game. And going against him is always a tough challenge, and it'll be fun.
Derek, first Thursday night game, you're going to LA against the defending champs, riding high. How big of a stage is this for you guys this week?
Man, to be honest, for us, it's important because it's our next game, and because of the way that we didn't win certain games early on in the season, every next game is the most important, and so for us, it's this week's game. It's a new challenge, like you said, defending champs. Stars all over the field on their side of the football, and so it's a tough challenge for us, but it's one I'm excited about. And our fans usually travel well to LA, so I'm excited about that.
What's the biggest challenge for you in a short week?
The biggest challenge is I have to fit, usually my schedule, into just a few days. And so, the day, there really is no break. And so with everything that I have to watch and I have to get done to feel prepared like I usually do for every game, yesterday was just, crammed. Today is, again, crammed, to make sure I get in everything I get in. That way on, Wednesday night and Thursday, I can always go back and do my routine, how I go back and, think through things and all that kind of stuff instead of cramming all the way up until kickoff. And so I think that's the biggest challenge for me, just as a quarterback. We're putting the game plan in and all that stuff, but, getting the film in, getting the studying in, really knowing the opponent, knowing the defense, that's always a big challenge.
That's all set.
Good.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, guys.
All right, we'll get started with questions. First.
You had such a big game again on Sunday, but there was one play when I watched it back. You got tackled on the sideline. You were very frustrated by it. And obviously, with all these other big plays, all the other big stats, I guess, has it always kind of been your mentality of making everything out of every play to where even if you have a huge day, that one little play kind of bothers you?
Yeah, I mean, it usually bothers me for the moment, and then you get over it. But ones like that where, you break one more tackle, and I pride myself on being able to make the first guy miss. So, whatever the reason is, whether he wasn't exactly where I thought he was, because I thought he was a little bit more in front, so when I threw the stiff arm, it kind of missed, and then he wrapped my legs up. So those piss me off because I always think about the potential of every play. I'm in the business of maximizing everything that I do out there on the field. So, anytime we got potential for a really big one and we don't come down with it, or one like the third touchdown potential, whatever goes into those kind of piss you off a little bit longer. But you got to have as short of a memory as possible just to, get over it. Usually it'll bother you for a second and you'll get over it pretty quick.
Davante, a matchup between wide receivers and quarterbacks. There's there's a game within the game sometimes, especially mentally, and there's a lot of talking going on sometimes. Jalen Ramsey is known to talk a little bit. Do you enjoy that part of the game? Do you get into that? Do you find that guys are trying to maybe get into Davante's head a little bit with it?
I found that they do it a lot less to me than other people, but and that's not. I don't want to sound any type of way, but it's just the fact of the matter. But yeah, I mean, I'm down for it. I've been doing this a long time, so I don't really seek that at this point. I just like to play the game and do what I got to do. But if it goes there, then I'm completely fine with it being that type of game.
He's somebody that he's obviously one of the best in his position.
Mm-hmm.
You enjoy those kind of matchups when it's you one of the best against one of the best in Jalen?
Absolutely. I mean, it never ends up panning out. We've played against each other a couple times. It never ends up panning out like the heavyweight bout everybody, hypes it up to be going into the week, just based off of, the scheme. And, obviously every offense that I've been in, I've moved around a lot, which I can't do anything about, nor can he. He can only, do what the defensive call is. But anytime we do get an opportunity to go one-on-one, it's something that is, it's a fun matchup when you got two guys that are, known to go at it a little bit.
Can you walk us through that? The first 31-yard touchdown, obviously, Asante Samuel's playing in off coverage. What did you see on that play that made that touchdown happen?
Well, yeah, it was a great call. Great. I think anytime you have momentum like that, defense gets a stop, and we go out there and call something like that where you go at the, you kind of chancing, or not chancing, but you challenging rather, what they're doing, because typically that's not the move that most offenses are going to do. First play, go at the end zone after a turnover. So, it just shows the coaching staffs and Josh's individually his belief in me as a player to go and do that, or us as an offense. But obviously the ball's getting thrown to me, so my job is to just come down with as many of those as possible, just to keep that on the front of his mind. Anytime we get in that fringe or wherever on the field, just to remind him that that's a great call going to something like that. So basically just off coverage, and I just had to be patient with my route and focus on the ball. And I think that's something that guys don't do enough. Receivers, they start messing with the DB and hand fighting and stuff like that, where they gotta call for that. If we're running and I'm getting contacted too much, I leave that on the ref to make that call. And if I'm not getting contacted, if it's not too much, then I'm expecting to come down with the ball. So just basically had to finish on that.
Like he did get a lot of contact on there, making a one-handed catch.
Yeah.
Do you practice one-handed catches in practice with the hand-eye coordination a lot?
No, I never practice that. That's just something that's innate, and you find a way to just make it in the moment. But I mean, yeah, I don't ever practice if the ball ends up outside of my frame, and it happens that way in practice. And sometimes I'll come down with those, but for the most part, I'm not a big one-handed catch guy. I know it doesn't look like that as of late. It's been a couple of them, but I'd much rather get two on it, higher percentage.
Kind of an offbeat question, but in multiple interviews you've talked about how much basketball has really helped you within the game of football and getting by people.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, what are some basketball players that you might have looked up growing up that's helped you with your football game and your route running?
Well, AI was my guy growing up. AI was always my favorite. With the Rock, Jamal Crawford, another guy, Darren Williams. Darren Williams was my favorite basketball player for when I got to like high school. That was somebody that I really watched his game, because I started playing playing receiver in my junior year, so I started watching a little bit of older tape like that. And most guys don't watch basketball tape to get ready for football season, but that was something that was really natural to my movements and the way that I've been kind of moving around basically my whole sports career. So those are some of the guys I went toward.
Davante, how scary is this offense when you and Josh are both doing it?
Well, I mean, we definitely got a lot of potential to do a lot of good things, but it's a lot more than just me and Josh. If we're on top of it, because we're two of the guys that get the the bulk out there, and we kind of assume that role to to hold that burden. But at the end of the day, if Josh can't do anything that he does without the big men up front doing their job, and same goes for me. Everything starts up front, so everybody's got to do their job. It's not just he and I, but we definitely assume that role and enjoy it.
Is it the Iverson step over Tyronn Lue or the Iverson crossover on Jordan?
Well, I'm not allowed to answer the second part, so I'll say the step over.
Good catch. You guys have had success with flea flickers this year. Is that a call you like to hear? And what do you think defenses have to do when that happens?
Well, yeah, I mean, I like it. Anytime we have a shot called like that where it's a little bit of a change-up, borderline trick play, it keeps them on their toes. And honestly, I think the Chargers played it pretty well. What's up, Nate? That's Nate Hobbs, everybody. Nate Hobbs. But I think they actually played it pretty well. They just didn't. They ran out of defenders back there, and one of them had to run with Key on the outside, and it left me one-on-one with 23 in there. And great ball, good protection. Just had to finish the play.
How fine is that line then, Davante, between getting a flea flicker and it being a cool, fun thing? It's a trick play, but then also like, man, we got to resort to trick plays now.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't think we have to resort to them. That's kind of a way to keep teams honest, keep them on their toes. But I think we found some ways to move the ball without having to get too tricky.
Davante, some of those routes, it seems like you kind of start off like almost not walking pretty slowly, and then you kind of have to change direction. Is that something that you've always done?
Yeah, well, I think change of speed is something that has given people problems, and it just, it messes with the DB's timing and their mind a little bit. So it's something that I've definitely worked on, and there's a time and a place, time to. These guys, they love me around here, I guess. It's a good way to kind of keep them uncomfortable. I like to use more bursts in my game than just all out, sprinting. Sometimes that's what it calls for. But also the type of coverages that I get too. Guys can kind of slow play a little bit more if they got help. So for me to do that and then give a burst, then it kind of gets the DB in oh crap mode, and then he kind of get out of there, and then I can run my intermediates or take it over the top or shorter routes, just kind of mix it up a little bit.
Let's do 3 more. Vic, Paul, and Heidi.
What's the biggest challenge for you in the third week?
Well, typically it's getting your body back right after getting into a car crash every multiple times throughout the day. But body feels pretty good, so now it's just snapping back into. I don't think it's going to be too big of a deal. I think everybody talks about it and complains, but it's been on our calendar for a long time now, so everybody's got to go through it. It's not too big of a problem as long as you're healthy.
Talking with Josh Jacobs, he's talked a lot about the mentorship that Marcus Allen has provided him since he came in the league.
Mm-hmm.
When you came in the league, did you have somebody like that at the position that had played before you that kind of took you under their wing, and who was that?
I did. Well, I had multiple guys. I played with 2 Pro Bowlers in Jordy and Randall, so those 2 guys were like that, and it wasn't necessarily like a mentor as somebody where I sit down and like I'm taking notes, but just based off of the way that they did their job and the way they went about their business was, exactly how a pro does it. So I had a very in-depth look every day to kind of see the right way to do things. But another guy that kind of came on pretty early in my career was Larry Fitz. He's a mentor. He's everything that a mentor stands for. That's him. I mean, when I had my turf toe in 19, he sent a pretty pricey guy to come take care of me, and all the way out in Green Bay. And at that point we spoke multiple times before, but we hadn't really established a relationship. But I learned then that he was actually a really big fan of my game. So from that, obviously, anytime a guy is has that type of reputation, number 2 overall, yards wise, ever, that's a big deal. It means a lot to me. So I definitely look at him as a guy that helped me get to where I'm at right now, and I try to do everything I can with my game to kind of repay him.
Last question.
Yeah, just off the topic of the game a little bit. The thoughts on the changes to the Pro Bowl this year. What do you think about it? Kind of becoming a flag football?
Well, I knew there were some changes. Honestly, I didn't even know that it was flag football until you just said that. But yeah, I mean, it's a tough one because obviously the fans want to see that, but I mean you got to understand at the end of the day you go through a really physical. Your body goes through a lot throughout the season. So to think we're going to get into a game and just, want to kill each other when the season's over, the last thing a guy wants to do is get a knee or something like that where it's putting you out for the whole upcoming season. So it's a two-way street. You definitely want to give the fans something good to watch and fun, but, we definitely got to protect ourselves at the same time. So, and, it's a fun experience at the end of the day. I don't think anybody wants to go to the Pro Bowl to try to break the record for receiving or rushing. It's more so about the fellowship and just enjoying each other, meeting people. And I've made a lot of friends just, throughout the league that maybe I wouldn't have, met initially. So I think it's a pretty cool deal either way. That's pretty cool. Those two good coaches.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Davante.
Yeah, thanks, guys.